so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. After years of exploring this awe-inspiring truth on this podcast, I am super excited to announce that we are now going even deeper down the rabbit hole on the new late-night style consciousness-elevating talk show called Optimistic, which features epic soul share interviews from the world's brightest luminaries, live painting from mind-blowing visionary artists, high-vibe musical performances, and last but not least, none other than you, the listeners. The show is being filmed out of the epic spaceship-esque property called the Mystic Manor that myself and the rest of the Optimistic crew now navigate reality from in the transformational vortex of Venice Beach, California. And there are multiple exciting ways you can co-create Optimistic along with us. Everything from coming to experience a life-changing, transformational Mystic Manor immersion week with me and the rest of the Optimistic family, which consists of workshops and unique experiences, including being on the show itself, to coming to participate as an audience member during a live taping, to viewing behind-the-scenes footage at the Mystic Manor each week, longer-run overtime interviews with my soul share guests on each episode, and even peeking in on our workshops and healing sessions each week. All of these options are outlined in detail on the webpage optimistic.tv. That's spelled OPTIMYSTIC.TV. To be perfectly frank, the cost to produce Optimistic is the biggest stretch I've ever made in my life. And it has been a huge leap of faith for me, trusting that if I leap, that the net will appear. So if your life has been enriched by Positive Head in any way, I'm asking you at this time to pay it forward by going to optimistic.tv and choosing one of the many ways to support the evolution of this podcast that is most in alignment with you so that we can reach a broader audience. There are options as low as $2.22 a month, and you can virtually experience life here at the Mystic Manor for only $7.77 a month. Pretty cheap, right? I'd also like to thank you in advance for honoring our soul contract to show up at this very special transitional time in our collective journey, as well as showing up for all the souls out there that will surely benefit from the monetary currency you were inspired to flow into this project to help us all step into a more optimistic world. Once again, the webpage is OPTIMYSTIC.TV. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all soon at the Mystic Manor. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I am very excited to say that I have two of the world's top visionary artists here with me on the show. Actually, sitting right next to me, I have Amanda Sage and Vajra, two of the leading artists on the world stage whose incredible work brings the ethereal down to the physical by painting an ever-unfolding picture of hope and beauty that is helping to inspire humanity into its next greatest and grandest evolution. Amanda, Eric, a.k.a. Vajra, welcome to the show, my friends.
Thank you, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is awesome to be here. Thank you.
Oh, both of you have been so gracious in blessing up the very first episodes of Optimistic, which the world hasn't seen yet. But episode 1, you, Vajra, episode 3, you, Amanda, and yeah, so it only felt right to really get the chance to deep dive. I know on Optimistic we have like sort of a couple minutes to hear about your work that you're showcasing, but yeah, this is going to be great because we get to really probe and understand what makes you guys tick, and the ability to create so much such epic visionary art. And before we kind of dive down that rabbit hole, I would like to be very predictable and start with the same opening question I always start with, and I'm going to ask each of you independently. You're in an elevator, Amanda. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
10 floors to answer.
Yep.
So that's a little bit.
A lot of times people do the Willy Wonka answer where they fly into space and it takes them like 5 minutes to answer. And I'm like, yeah, we're out there now.
All right.
Remember when the elevator blasts off?
My passion is to inspire myself and everyone around me, and to do that in all the ways possible at my disposal. And, you know, I like to dance, I like to cook, I like to paint, I like to weave. I think I'm a weaver, actually. I know I'm a weaver.
A weaver?
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means to you?
A weaver is a connector, too. And, you know, connecting people, connecting projects, connecting visions, ideas, different parts of, you know, of something that can make a whole and make something work really well. Like, I love figuring things out. I used to read a lot of Nancy Drew when I was a kid.
Oh, I remember Nancy Drew.
So I'm a bit of a detective in me,
Right.
of like trying to and to see where's a weak link and how can we strengthen that, and
Right.
you know, and asking the universe for guidance surrounding, you know, so being of service, and that's really makes me excited and happy. Yeah.
Yeah, as Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. I like to add to that. Why? Because there are no others.
Exactly.
I like that. Great answer.
Yeah.
And we might have went only 11 floors, so we're good.
Yeah, so for
Hoping
me,
to get through.
on that elevator, I guess my answer would be that my main passion is creation, and like the creation of a better world for myself, for everybody, for everything. Like Amanda, I think of myself as a weaver, except I call myself a bridge builder. And I'm building bridges between different people, but the most important thing I think I do is I build bridges between this reality and higher dimensional realities. And so I believe, you know, full disclosure, I think I actually do magic, and I think that a lot of us do, whether or not we know it.
Yeah.
And when you know it, you can do even greater magic.
Yeah.
And so I try to align with different concepts, ideas, entities, anything that I feel actually serves the greatest good of everybody and everything. And then through my hands and my body, I take these higher dimensional constructs, I translate them into physical reality. I build a magic portal to bridge that world between ours and others, so that, you know, everybody can experience the things that I feel are the most important that I can possibly share in a really powerful way. So my passion is creation, magic, building bridges, everybody and everything. So, long story short.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love the intensity of this guy. He's like my favorite. It's so good. And we built a magical story
Yes, we did.
together. The bridge that caused this moment to happen. And you guys may listen back. So if you guys go back to episode 726, and I think even a few of the daily episodes leading up to it, I told the story of meeting Eric Vajra at that time, and ultimately landing with one of his incredible pieces of work on my wall, if you will. And maybe we can share a little bit of that recap of that later on when we get to like the synchronicity story, because we co-created one, and it was really cool.
We're still co-creating it, actually.
We're still co-creating it, actually. Well said. Well said. So, well, why don't you do this, if you would? I'd love to get a little bit of the other thing I always like to do at the top of these episodes is kind of start off with backstory to get some context for who the heck I'm sitting down with. And so maybe you can both take a few minutes and share a little bit about how you ended up doing what you do.
Well, it's been a journey that has constantly unfolded. You know, it's like there wasn't a moment when I was a youth where I was like, I'm going to be an artist.
Right.
I really didn't envision that kind of for myself. But, you know, it unfolded as something that I had a knack for, and I really enjoyed. And I also, there was a moment of connection between linking a kind of talent with purpose, which I think was was where it then really snowballed, when it really got active, and where like what people know of my work today kind of started to really come through fluidly, as kind of like that's recognizable. Because it became really authentic. It like connected the passion with the technique.
Right.
But I kind of started out by being very curious around how I wanted to learn how to paint anything, because I figured that would be a good tool to have. And then I also was somehow trusted that I would know what to do then. But I didn't really go into it knowing specifically, but I had been around a lot of really interesting people growing up. My parents were very interested in diverse, more new age things, especially my mother, and health and spirituality. And like I grew up in the Waldorf school system. And so there was a lot of like very interesting kind of different ideas around, our connection with nature, spirituality. I grew up meditating, knowing that we were all one.
Wow.
Like from when
right.
That was just
That's not
clear.
very common in our community, right?
Well, it's hopefully becoming more common.
Right. I look at the little ones now.
Yeah, for sure. There was a poster on our wall that was called Peace Trek, and it was a huge image. It was big, of a globe with all these little people. It was kind of like a cartoon illustration, and one half of the globe was kind of this like warring, polluted kind of like image of the world, and the other side was this flourishing, like colorful, playful, healthy world. And it was kind of like a very clear illustration of like, which one do you want?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? And so I made my mind up pretty clearly as a kid. I'm on that side.
Yeah, right.
That's where I'm going to be hanging out, and
Right.
I'm going to do everything I can to help bring that, to choose that path. And so it's just been something where I've been very, very humble, I think, in my heart, feeling like I don't know, but I want to be of service.
Right.
And so it's led me to work with incredible people and be around and be invited to be around the table, of really incredible things that I've been able to be witness to in this life, where I am so sure of what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know every day it's like I have to figure out it's my life first, that, in my way of interacting with the world.
Yep.
That's my first responsibility, and then beyond that, it's like, it's how, I can't control how anybody else takes it.
Right.
I can't control how somebody else views my work.
Right.
But it's a portal. They are, like what Vajra was saying, and I really feel that it's not me as Amanda painting these works in many ways. I feel like I'm playing with a orchestra of angels or something.
Right.
It was like, I don't know who it is, but my feeling, my heart is really the guide that kind of like connects that thread too. And sometimes I have to distract my mind when I'm painting. And sometimes it's great to do live painting. That's very helpful. Sometimes I can get really in the flow in those situations with a live music band, or I love listening to podcasts too. There's various ways to get around the trickery of the mind that wants to control, wants to tell you that you need to go have a fourth snack right now. I sometimes look at my painting table. I'm like, I've got everything that I need, and I have 3 drinks.
Yeah, right.
It's like, no, I still need to do this. And it's like, because you're about to go deep and deeper than you've ever gone before.
Right.
So it gets more and more challenging because there's more and more entities showing up.
Yeah, it gets
battling for the brush.
It gets intense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Entities showing up, battling for the brush.
Alex Gray did a fantastic painting that is on the cover of the artist's
Mission of Art.
The Mission of Art, yeah. And it's a painting of a hand holding the brush, and there's all these little demons down below here, and then all these angels, and all these,
wow.
A lot of the greats that are that I'm sure he's conscious of that are with him and behind him as he paints. And it's kind of like this universal. And it's really, his work has also been such a trigger for helping us like connect the dots, I think, a lot of people, because it's also so illustrative.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So it tells a story and it's very specific, which has been, very important.
Yeah.
At this time, we're in a lot of learning right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're not just like we sit in front of a visionary art image and we're like, bing, you know, some people.
Yeah.
Right, but a lot of people are like learning, like what is going on here? What are these people doing?
Right. Trying to discern how to navigate and let what's the greatest good flow through you, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And so the way you do that is by, really getting clear with who you are and what you want and mastering your will and realizing that, you can't control the water that you sail through, but you can control the direction that you sail. And so as long as you're clear in your heart as to what you want to do, you follow that, you're going to make the difference you're supposed to. I think a lot about that painting, holding the brush. And a number of lessons that I've learned throughout my life have led me to the perspective that in the end, it's all going to be okay.
Right.
Like every good decision I ever made, every bad decision I ever made, every choice for love, every choice for hate that I ever made got me right where I am, to the point where I feel I can make the biggest difference. One thing, though, that I think is incredibly important to remember is that be clear with what you want to do, because, decisions can make themselves, and it's very clear that you're making the right decision for you and aligning with the energies that you actually want to, because, they can kind of come in and do their own thing, and it's really good to be clear with yourself and have control over the situation, because again, you can direct your own ship. You can't control the water, but as long as you're the pilot, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
And so my journey has been kind of one of light and dark. Most of my life, I grew up in kind of like a little like semi-narcissistic, postmodern kind of like little bubble reality where I didn't really care much about anything. I loved my family, but I was kind of a dick. I was not that good to other people. And, I had a number of revelations over the course of my life that just showed me like, oh, wow, look at the pain you've caused. Look at the darkness you've caused. Look at what this did to you and the people you love. Like, what do you want to do on this world? What's your purpose? And I realized, I'm going to save the world. One day I'm going to save the world. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I just committed myself to that cause. That was the direction I was sailing my ship in. I didn't know where I was going. I kind of had this idea, then another, and they all kind of just gradually fell away until I was left with the gift of art that's always been there, just kind of waiting to be developed. And I feel like it's when we as individuals step into our place of power and accept the gift that was given to us when we came here, that's when we stand the chance to actually save the world the way we were supposed to. Whatever that means, if you're a chef, cook your heart out. If you're a painter, make the best paintings you possibly can for everybody. You, Brandon, what you're doing, synthesizing all of this together in a way that makes it available to everybody. Whatever you're here to do it, step into that, and that's when the magic happens. And so about 10 years ago, I started painting. Drew all my life, but I never took it very seriously. Most of what I did in high school was fairly dark, nihilistic, judgmental. I share some of that on my website as well to kind of show where I'm coming from and the journey I've been through. But that's not what I want to align with anymore. It's it got me to where I am. But these days, for me, it's all about love and compassion and beauty and truth and all the archetypal, goodness that we can bring into this world. Because there's enough people out there already, aligning with the other side. So, that's what we're here for, is to help balance that equation. And that's what I strive to do in every thought, word, action, prayer, wish that I make. It's kind of my long story short there.
Love it. I love it. So, the type of art that you're both doing, it is so powerful. I mean, referred to as visionary art, I think for a very good reason. And it's also relatively new on the world stage, right? I mean, you don't go back too far and see something that is similar.
Well,
do you?
No, you do if you look around. Some of my first exposure to visionary art, in quotes, was my mom's from Yucatan. And I spent a great deal of time running around the temples and just getting absorbed by these beautiful carvings of these interdimensional beings and deities that were there in support of, humanity's evolution. Not always. Some of them are fairly opposite to that agenda, but that was like visionary art's been happening as long as human beings have been creating. It got a term, it got a label kind of fairly recently. Alex Gray made it big, but like it's always existed.
Right.
In one of his presentations and lectures that he gives, he goes through like the history of shamanic art. Basically, like it's been called other things throughout history, but it's always been there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like anybody that deals with like, the supernatural, the potency of the non-visible reality, and makes that something that we can see and deal with and integrate in this reality, that's visionary art, and that's been happening forever.
Right.
I think the reason why we're seeing it more now, or it seems like, we haven't really seen that much before, has a lot to do with the advent of the internet.
Right.
And there's also an international tribe of contemporary visionary artists that have evolved because of a variety of like the global community actually learning about itself and being able to converge and come together. And one of those things is through transformational festival culture.
Yep.
Burning Man is included, of course, in that, but expanded from there. There's different festivals that have been going on all continents of the United States, of the world.
Yep.
Not the United States, every state of the United States as well, where it's becoming kind of like this a cultural phenomenon. There's people that are a part of all of and living, working as a part of them, and creating these kind of like magical new worlds where people come and they get to see art, learn things through workshops, dance, be in community, and so that's kind of like that's I think that's the culture that has celebrated it the most. It's kind of been something that's come out of the underground in many ways.
Right.
Not out of established academic culture.
Right.
Because it's also pointing towards a lot of subject matter that has been pretty taboo.
Right.
Like talking openly about spirituality and in academia, as well as psychedelics, for an example.
Yep.
Those two things have been very much, like in the last 50, 60 years, pretty stigmatized.
Yep.
One thing I think that like you and I, Amanda, have talked about is that like I feel like now really is the time for all of us to be doing what we're doing. That like, the world, like you just mentioned, things have been so stigmatized before. We lived in such like a rigid kind of like structured world that wasn't really ready for what we have to contribute. But through the groundwork that like, visionaries have been laying over the past several decades, like we're finally at a point where like the messages that we have to share, like the people are ready for it. And I feel like it's a really beautiful time for us all to be doing what we're doing. Because like, I don't think we could have made the difference that we can now before.
I agree, and I think in a lot of ways, though, like I don't feel like I am responsible for it. It's like I slipped more into a role that was needed.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I had good teachers around me, and I was like, okay, I'll step up to the plate.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how I continuously feel. Like it's something that I'm observing and trying to stay sensitive to, rather than being like, this is my idea, this is my vision, and I want to put this out there. It's like it's all kind of happening symbiotically.
Yeah.
And it's a continuation. So that's kind of where I'm looking. I'm looking at the past, looking at what I can of history and her story, right? And then looking forward, from this vantage point of being in the all-knowing now of all that there is, and being like, well, where shall we go?
Right.
What could we add to this experience that could help us, make choices in our everyday lives, because that's what it takes, that are going to get us to a place where there is more appreciation and more generosity and more health and wealth and magic, like remembering that. And the thing is I think some of us that have chosen the art path, and for one reason or another, I think a lot of people are drawn to a spiritual path too because of some kind of traumatic experience they've had in their life.
Right.
Where it like gets you to actually question what is going on, right? And from there we need signposts. We need ways to help guide people. We need as many different avenues to be able to catch somebody when they're falling.
Right.
And art can do that. Art and music can do that. Right. There's, a good friend can do that, but we need to have access to these things.
Yeah.
Also, good food can help. Good water can help. All these
There's
things.
hardly anything chocolate can't fix.
Oh, yeah. It's the base. It's like, coming back to what is the root of what is needed.
Yeah.
And contributing to that awakening that on a mass scale, just driving here today through Los Angeles, it just blows my mind being in Los Angeles. I'm like, there's so many people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
How does this work? Where are they all going?
Yeah.
I just want to follow them.
Where are you all going?
What are you
today?
doing?
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
I was on top of a mountain looking over LA yesterday, and I was just like so proud that we haven't blown ourselves off.
Yeah.
I was
In
just like,
shock.
there's so many people here with so many stories, each one the center of their own reality, and we're doing okay. And my hope is that through like our contributions and what we do, we can help us all get a lot better. Because it's like you're saying, like good food, good friends, and it's not just like what we do behind the easel, but what we do like behind the wheel. Like when I'm driving, it's like, if I'm sitting there pissed off that I'm in traffic, like what am I doing to contribute to the overall evolution of our planet?
The collective consciousness, the collective field, yeah.
So I try to, bring that perspective to like everything, like make my whole life an act of creation.
Yeah.
And that's I think where we all are, and that's why we're sitting here right now.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a little bit more about something that this Alex Gray piece with the different entities sort of surrounding the brush, and I find that to be a very fascinating sort of topic in general. You hear, I don't know if it was like Mozart or Beethoven, I can never remember which. He talked about like, I'm not making this music, it's coming through me, right? And I truly believe, I had someone on the show a while back, intuitive, a few years back, and she said something that stuck with me. She goes, Brandon, as you continue on this journey, you're going to get a bigger and a bigger platform, and as your platform gets bigger and your voice reaches more people, she's like, it's a unique scenario, so you have like beings that are lined up to utilize your vessel to help sort of play a role, and that struck me because I don't consider myself a channel, or you have a lot of people out there that are channeling whatever entity supposedly, and their voice will change or not, or whatever it is. It's not something that really appeals to me. I came here to be Brandon, and that being said, I do believe inspiration in spirit is a real thing, right? It's something that as we sort of get unique, anyone who gets some sort of a unique platform to affect the world at large, I believe, whether it's spirit guides, something behind the scenes that is sort of helping and assisting and higher self, whatever you want to call it, and maybe all of the above. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, just to go a little bit deeper down that rabbit hole, how you feel there is something beyond the veil that is coming through you versus, entities that are vying for the brush. What is your perspectives on that?
May I? So I believe in the world of form and the physical reality, kind of the way that Plato broke it down. There's this invisible world where everything exists as a thought, an idea, in like a state of perfection. Wherever it lands on the spectrum, that's where it is. And then everything in the physical reality kind of mirrors that. Like you have a perfect physical, your body's as perfect as it can be to mirror this invisible form of you that exists. And so everything is, to liken it to quantum physics, like everything has its own waveform. Everything has its own kind of like gestalt, if you want to talk about it from like a Jungian point of view. And so even when I'm painting something that isn't a person or a deity, I'm still tapping into an idea that exists beyond physical reality. But the entities are really strange. Because oftentimes I'll finish a painting, like Amanda was saying, you're not working by yourself. You're working with like in harmony with, what would you call it, an orchestra of angels? It's that. Like you look at these pieces when you're done, and you're like, wow, I didn't do that. Like I was doing that with something or with somebody, and they're these people like the people that I try to paint. I feel like they all have a very positive message, but I do get a little bit tripped up sometimes. Like one big thing, a big topic of mine in my art that I try to represent is the Taurid meteor stream that Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock talk about. There's some really cool interviews with them on the Joe Rogan podcast that break down kind of like this history that humanity's had with this recurring cycle of meteoric debris that ended the last civilization. All signs point that it's coming back. And so like one of the things that I really try to do is share the messages I feel are the most important. So I'm trying to kindle this like remembrance of the things that have happened and also create warnings for the future. But at the same time, like some of the pieces I worked on, I made this one piece called Kalakuta, which I thought I was tapping into like Shiva energy. And Shiva in certain myths has been this cosmic savior figure, you know, catching this like deluge in his hair, stopping like world destroying poisons. Actually, Kalakuta is a world destroying poison that was like the Asuras and the Devas were trying to create this elixir of immortality. And it's actually all a really beautiful allegory for the precession of the equinoxes. But they end up creating this world-destroying poison that's just flying to Earth. The second it hits, all life is going to be destroyed. Shiva ends up coming in, saving the day, and swallowing the poison. That's why he's called the blue-throated one. It turned his throat blue. And Nandi, his bull, lapped up the last few drops, you know, saving the planet from this cosmic catastrophe. At the same time, he's the destroyer, the transformer sometimes. So, like, I kind of used him as this anchor of the piece, kind of saying, like, which way are we going to go as humanity? Like, are we going to choose destruction? Are we going to save ourselves?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's, like, so potent that I'm just like, what did I really do when I made that portal? Like, what is this, is this ultimately going to serve the purpose I want it to? Or is something else going to happen? I don't know. It's strange, but you just have to trust in yourself and, like I said, just sail your ship in whatever direction it is you think you're supposed to go. Cross your fingers and hope.
Hope the demons don't come out.
But yeah, it is really important that you choose to align. Like, you can't know whatever anything else's intention is, but you can know your own. So it's really important that you go into it with positive intention.
Right,
that, like, this is what I want to do. And then, you know.
At the end of the day, it's going to match your intention in some way, shape, or form. It's got to.
Exactly.
But I, you know, you said, I hope the demons don't come out. I want to kind of go towards that because I think that it's important, and there is like to give a shout out kind of to the dark
learn
artists.
to dance with the demons.
The dark artists of the visionary art movement, or just in art in general, and those that are there. Some are my very dear friends. They paint the scariest things I've ever seen.
Yep.
And I never want to meet them, and sometimes I have to be careful to show some of my students who are just too sensitive. I'm like, no, you can't look at that book. I'm sorry, but they're no, I will never forbid it.
It's like the idea of inviting your demons to tea, kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, but there's one friend of mine. He lives here in Los Angeles, and he is one of the loveliest humans I've ever met. His name is Christopher Ulrich, and he did this series called The Demon Eater some years ago.
Ooh.
And he is such an incredible channel of and he's able to wield these energies. And I mean, the poor soul, he'll describe himself as being like back in the gutter, you know, barely alive,
the tortured artist kind of vibe. Yeah,
totally. But he is a very deep clairvoyant, and he sees, and we've taught together, we've exhibited together.
Wow.
Kind of like the light and the dark, you know, we're like brother and sister in that sense.
Interesting.
But I've really grown to respect and love and not be afraid as much by being connected with him. And so another friend of mine, Chet Zar, who paints these really incredible demons from the underworld. You know, but there's a role to this, and Chet Zar does an incredible thing where he turns them into clowns often, right? Because they are, you know, and there's the scary clown world, right? But in general, it's like how seriously are we going to take it?
Right.
And there's a story in all of it, and there is a common kind of in the greater spectrum, and this is where I look at like the machine of the personality could also be where the demons live. Right? But the machine of the personality is maybe a constructed thing, or is in some ways of its own element, where the light and the spark of your beingness and of your isingness and of God is of, like, you know, the greatest force.
Right.
So what is darkness truly? besides like different aspects of the facet
Yep.
that is trying to learn of itself and
Yep.
see, and I wonder that, because I don't really identify and see like, okay,
Calling it bad.
yeah,
Yes.
and therefore letting it have control over me. I was like, oh, there it is.
Yep. The
You
only
know,
thing to
here it
fear,
comes.
it's like the idea, the only thing to fear is the fear. Is fear itself. We all know that one. And then I think it was Tony Robbins said the only thing to fear is the fear of fear. And
Yeah.
how important, you've never seen a great work of art without shadow in it, right?
It's like
it wouldn't
the-
exist. So it's a necessary part. And it's so easy to demonize, the darkness when really it is like you said, a facet of the all and a necessary component for the light to even exist.
And yeah, like you said, like you don't want to call it bad. Like you give it honestly like more power by calling it bad, because
Right.
it's not bad. Like
Yeah.
it's like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. It's like he said, "Thank you, Mara." Like I see that you're me and you can't touch me. Like we're all connected. And like I said, like I personally believe in the end everything's going to be okay. For me personally, like it's not about like rejecting the bad. Like I've gone super into that before, and
Yeah.
like I still do in my sketchbook. It's where I purge things, but like. For me, if I'm going to make a painting, like it's got to be something that's like very pure and very like I feel like I'm an amplifier. I feel like we're all amplifiers, and like it's not about running from the dark, but that's not my path.
Right,
It's like
right.
I don't reject it. I've actually come to like I used to be very very much more polarized than I am today. Just like nope.
Yep.
Can't do it. Like. Accepting the things in myself, but being like, no, like I'm afraid of that. But like, it's not fear anymore. It's just acceptance and like realizing that like it's all going to be okay.
I've been
Just follow
listening.
your heart.
I've been listening to a lot of Rudolf Steiner audio readings of his lectures and books because I did a portrait of him recently. He was a mystic and visionary, like a late 1800s, early 1900s. He created the Waldorf School curriculum, and so I just did a portrait of him in celebration of the 100-year anniversary of the
cool.
Waldorf schools,
Which
is this year. And it's deep stuff. You guys want to go for a deep dive? YouTube, look up Rudolf Steiner, and I guarantee it's way deeper than you ever thought.
Wow.
And very interesting. And what he talks about, like the ethereal beings and how far back he goes historically.
Back to Atlantis and before.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in so much detail.
Very beautiful detail.
Super interesting stuff. And so one thing that I had never heard before or articulated in this way was about these entities that are the ugliest of all. And they're the ones that are responsible for the creation of art. And they look like these really, really gnarly spider creatures. And they are the ones that are, and it's because they're so ugly, there's this drive to create beauty.
I can see that.
And it's just, I was like, no way, really? I mean, I've kind of seen these characters before, and they lurk there, they lurk around but they're like, and it was, I was not expecting to hear that, and ever since that, and so the rest of that day, and of course I was painting while I was listening to this, and I'm like thinking about them now. I'm like, oh God, now I'm gonna be aware of them forever now.
They're gonna creep in.
That's such a potent metaphor. Like I feel that. Like one of the reasons why I'm so compelled to do good is because I did so much shitty stuff in the past. It's like I know what it is to cause pain and suffering and misery, and I don't want to. Like I want to do the opposite for people because like that's what I feel like I'm here for. But if it wasn't for that, like I wouldn't have that context. I would have just been in this little complacent bubble of normalcy. But I know what pain is. I know what suffering is. I want to help others feel the opposite and like bring that up in myself. One last thing I'll say on like the good and bad thing. Like I completely agree. Like you can't hide the bad in quotes. Like when you start doing that, you run into so many problems on like a societal level and also a personal level. Like one of the things that bothered me the most at this one festival I went to was this opening ceremony where the guy said, think of life as like a whitewater rafting adventure, and you're going down the river and there's this huge boulder in your way. He's like, if you look at the boulder boulder, you're going to hit the boulder.
Yeah.
What you need to do is look away from the boulder. And I'm just like, are you crazy? You're going to die. You're going to run into that boulder and die. Like, you can't pretend the boulder's not there. You have to like acknowledge the boulder and maneuver around it, dance with it, you know? Like, and that's what I feel like artists that work in the dark do, is like provide these things for us to see and like understand and deal with, like as individuals and like on a societal level.
I think to add to that, where the real fine line with that is once you have acknowledged the boulder, you know it's there, now look away and focus your attention elsewhere.
Yeah.
This is something that they actually do with race car drivers. They teach them when you start spinning out, whatever you do, don't look at the wall. Because guess what happens if you look at the wall? You hit the wall. So they know the wall's there. They've acknowledged it. Okay, I'm looking this way where I want to go.
Exactly.
Which is an interesting, acknowledgement. Okay, now focus my attention where I want to go.
We need that all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you get, and we need friends to help us remember that.
Agreed.
Yep.
Which is huge.
Can't do it alone.
That's the whole point of this show, is me wanting to remind myself and remind others, as I always say, we teach best what we most need to learn. It's like, okay, I need a daily reminder. Let's remind myself, and who else wants to be reminded with me? And that's literally how this started, It's such an important piece.
Yeah. It's a great action piece, which it's what it is.
So one of the other things that's really curious to me, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the author Philip K. Dick. He wrote stories that then were somehow prophetic. I forget the exact details. My friend Chris has shared them with me before, but a lot of the things that he wrote about, that then, like one time he was at a gas station years after writing the story and the exact thing unfolded, and he's like, this is what I wrote about, This whole idea of prophecy coming through in our art. And you and I, Vajra, we talked a little bit about that. And it's a really fascinating sort of phenomenon that seems to have happened to some degree in your own life. And perhaps you'd like to share?
So it's fascinating, honestly. Most of the paintings I've made, as life goes on, I'm able to see how they actually came true in a number of ways. I feel like I didn't mean it to be, but it ended up being actual prophecy, personal and also global in some senses and some stories. But the most clear example I could give relates to a painting I made before the Thomas Fire back in 2017 called The Jester and the Jack-o'-lantern. And this is one of those paintings that, I don't know, it kind of summarizes like everything that I've spoken so far about on the show in terms of like my belief in alignment with different energies and how those manifest and being careful what you wish for. But also how in the end it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I made this painting of this little person having stepped into this ring of fire, and there's this kind of trickster god up at the top blowing this breath of flame down that makes this big scary jack-o'-lantern. And the whole message of the painting was about, standing in yourself in a place of strength, not backing down from the challenges that arise in front of you, but, growing through them and mastering yourself. And in the end, this little trickster god up at the top, who's up there blowing the fireball in your path, is actually there to help you grow if you're able to, rise to the challenge.
Right.
And so I made this before December of 2017, and then on December 2017, my home and studio and that painting itself, along with most of my other originals, burned in the Thomas Fire.
Wow.
And so I literally became...
Have you seen this painting, Amanda?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's this wall of fire.
Yeah, and that's literally what happened. I was standing face to face with like a 25-foot wall of crimson flame that chased me off of my property.
Wow.
The wind was so strong. Like there's this jester at the top of the painting blowing, like he's this wind force.
Right.
The wind was so strong blowing that fire that there were literally tumbleweeds on fire raining from the sky around us as we were driving away.
Wow.
Just like embers whipping through the air. It was just the world of fire. And literally I was face to face with the flame that I painted. And it was crazy. I realized that afterwards, like, whoa, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, this is really gnarly. I painted that and that happened to me. And I grappled with it, throughout the process. I was able to see the silver linings, like, hey, at least that happened, blah, blah, blah. Really sucks that I lost all my stuff, but oh well, I saved everything that mattered. I got my pets, and, that's really all that mattered.
Right.
But these days, with everything that's happened through Optimistic and here at Mystic Manor and just in life in general, just like love life and magic. Everything's just flowing more than I could ever have imagined. I'm literally living like the best reality that I could have created for myself.
Yeah.
There's so many surprises that came in that I couldn't even ask for if I wanted, and like they're all just so magical and beautiful. And I wouldn't be here had the fire not transformed my life that way.
Yeah.
So I'm able to look at it now and be like, you know, I made that for myself. This was the greatest challenge that I had to face so far, and now I'm the greatest me because of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really grateful for it. And, you know, in the end, it's all going to work out. Just stay in your heart and have faith in yourself and those that are with you that are in alignment.
Yeah, the fire is burning away the old self, perhaps, and molding you to become, you know, the next iteration of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying I caused the Thomas fire by painting that painting.
Yeah,
like
right.
100%. But I do think that I invited it into my life. Like
Yeah.
maybe my house wouldn't have burned down if I hadn't done that
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. But it's interesting. I think it's beautiful and fascinating, and I can't wait to see how the rest of my paintings unfold.
Yeah. Well, you've got some good ones that have been coming out. So
thank you.
Yeah, when these incredible entities like the Demiurge or the Nest painting appear, you know, like that's going to be a good thing because they're beautiful. And I don't think they're going to bring you down.
How about you, Amanda? What have you manifested through your artworks?
Well, I keep thinking, I mean, maybe there are, I don't know. What I keep thinking of is this story that I keep painting that we are not there yet to look back and be like, that was a prophecy, you know,
I like
or something.
That. I like that.
And it's something that's a story that is not, that I also don't feel is like a personal vision that came through just me. It's something that I'm seeing as like a trend or something that's happening
Right.
in culture. And that is something that is coming and needs to come. And the main force of that, the backbone of it is a train. Mm-hmm. So I integrate trains in almost all my paintings. They're like these symbolic weavers, connecting the tracks, connecting the visions, to build the peace train.
Right.
Which I think
it's
is-
in your latest work. You were live painting on Optimistic when
Yep.
we recorded. Yeah,
It's been in my paintings. The first time I started consciously painting about it was in 2012. That's when it really hit me. And I kind of saw the puzzle pieces all coming together, and that this was a natural progression and something that we were going to build. That it was going to be through the circus of culture and of art and of all the great influences of what it is to be human through sound, taste, smell, vision, all of these things, that we were going to come together to remember really the value of life.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be, and it was something that I was a part of the culture. I had made that choice. I've chosen the green road
Yeah.
when I was a kid. And so it's like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. So I was like, what can I do about it? Well, I guess I could paint about it, and I can talk about it, and just help like remind people, you know, and show them that this is an option. And what if we focus? We were talking about earlier about focus, what we focus on, right? Where do we turn our attention? Like that's up to us. Like if we can turn our attention towards something that makes us really feel good and makes us feel excited,
Yeah.
then we lose the sense of time.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm sure everybody's experienced that when you kind of like, try to identify a time when you have lost time, you know, because then you're actually in a state of real presence. And it's so interesting because the train actually brought us time as we know it. Right? The first kind of like little watches were the conductors.
Oh, right. Interesting.
It's like for trains to not like run into each other on the tracks, you know, time was super important.
Wow, yeah.
And so to go back on the tracks that took us to the end of the Western frontier on a journey of healing, right? Of leaving a trace of a thriving, sustainable foundation, you know, and to actually build that together.
Yeah.
You know, and it's time for a great remembering, which is also, you know, a great let's educate ourselves and in a way in things that really matter
Right.
for the future. You know, there's so many maybe things that aren't as necessary for us. I don't want to criticize the school systems, But I think
maybe we've outgrown the model. In some way.
But like how many to give more choices? Let's create more opportunities for people to learn in the ways that are really good for them.
Right.
You know, because all of us learn in different ways, and acknowledging how unique and different we each are. Mm-hmm. You know, and when we tap into like, well, what do you really want to spend your time doing? Maybe, and it doesn't have to be that for the rest of your life, right? We live in a different era now,
right?
Or why don't you become a master of I don't know, gardening, you know, and then go and become a potter, and then
an astronaut,
and an electrical, you know,
right? Just stay in the flow.
Yeah, and to keep being guided to expand and be of service, you know. And if we have that at the core of the train of this journey. I like to call it the next biggest party on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And everybody's invited.
Yes.
And so I paint about it. So it's like it's a festival, kind of circus, expo, something. And I've been talking about it. I was like, people are like, sure, you want to be that open about it. You might want to get some more down about it. I'm like, you know, I don't know if that's my role.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm not into like hiding. I'm not good at like hiding behind anything. I'm just like, here it is, blah, take it or leave it.
And let's play with it because I feel like this is something that's way big. I know it's way bigger than me.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need to prepare for. So it's like, when's the train leaving the station? It's something that people ask me. I was like, it's already left.
Yeah.
And it's something that is nonlinear though. You know, so we're getting ready for it. We are on it.
Yep.
And you know, all of the above. So it's like it's about the getting ready with our piece of the puzzle.
Remembering and coming back together. And I've heard this sort of this idea before of a train and painting that visual picture. And I can't remember where they were talking about, you know, the train that started to leave the station, and at first it's kind of going slower, and so it's easy to run and jump on. But as momentum grows, it's like if you're not kind of on the train, you may get left behind, and you know, it's like harder to catch. And you know, I've pondered that a little bit because it, you know, as you think about it, when I visually imagine a train just starting to leave the station, it's really easy to run up next to it and jump on. But there is a momentum and shift coming in. You know, some people talk about this idea that we're stepping into multiple timelines, and you know, there's I talked about it on the episode of Optimistic during the opening monologue that you were featured on, Amanda, where it's like, you know, are we moving into a utopian heaven on earth society? Is the world, you know, ending? And I said, yes. Like, which one are you sort of aligning with? Are you on the train or are you off? And so I'm curious what you both think about this idea of like, as the momentum picks up, you know, it's like it maybe gets harder for people who have been off of it to like they started to diverge. What do you think?
So I don't really think so. I think that like collectively we are affecting consciousness on a mass level. Mm-hmm. I think that on some level we really are all connected.
Yep.
And so like we're rewriting the human code more or less. And so like even if you're on the opposite side of the spectrum as far as intention goes, like we're all part of the same cloud.
Right.
And so like we're affecting that. And I feel like we're affecting others whether or not they even know it.
Yep.
You know, they're affecting us as well. But I think that our cohesion is such that we're really we're becoming much stronger amplifiers for the good things that we're all doing here. And like I think that it is time for change. Like I've personally said, like, you know, if I could sit down with the Illuminati and have a heart to heart with them, I would. But I don't think that I even need to. Yeah. I think that like we're affecting, you know, everybody through our actions, our hearts and minds. And so like it's just going to make it easier for them to get on the train than anything, you know.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it.
It's going to be easier to get on the train. That was my first impulse, too, with that visual. That we started taking off on the train there and it'd be harder to get on.
Yep.
I think that's just, we're expanding the fabric of availability.
We'll be so proficient. The train may be going fast, but we can teleport them on if they're standing on the side, right?
No, it's true that the availability now of like is just so much more than it ever was.
Yeah.
Though at the same time there is the separation that's happening that is greater than it ever was.
Right.
Right. So there's like it's deepening in all directions.
Yeah.
Which is the trippiest part,
It's
right?
super
so it's like
trippy.
so we just got to continue training, you know. So here's the train again. We have to continue training our skills. You know, and our you know, clarity of our base, our root. Like when we go out there, what is our reminder to pull us back home? You know, and strengthening our networks, our families, our communities, and making little choices every day to be more responsible for the environment,
right?
And make decisions around that. You know, and it's and to surround yourself with others that are aiming for that as well. You know,
Right.
and if they're not. That can, you know, people that are on such a strong path of also destruction in many ways can be very careful because we want to help each other, but sometimes it can be it'll pull everybody down, you know,
right
around them,
right,
you know. It's just like in swimming.
Yep.
It's very dangerous. So to be more attentive and to look for help, you know, if you're really there's so much help out there.
Yeah.
And that's something I have to remember often too, because I like to figure things out by myself.
Yeah, me too.
But it's so important to have, you know, there's pride. I mean, we all grapple with pride and you know, vanity and ego around all, you know, and it all of us do, you know. No, I don't think anybody.
EGO, everybody's greatest obstacle.
Good one.
Yeah. You know, so it's just learning to know it better.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this work that I've done with my partner Joe Bob Merritt around the learning, like getting to know the true self, and he has this map of conditioned man, which is like this really interesting layout to kind of like understand and give name to the different aspects of the machine, of the conditioned self, you know. And so there's either the complainer, the pleaser, one who sticks up for its rights, the belief in authority, or I should be different and you should be different. Those are the 6 not I's. And there's only 6, and they have an infinite amount of faces.
Wow.
And when you learn to spot them and remember that it is a not I, it is not, it is an aspect of the personality, then you can disidentify and become free. Right? So it's through seeing the truth that the light is shown in the dark. Right.
Right.
So you've got there's ways to and tricks to find, you know, it's really hard when you're in it, but that's when you need a friend that speaks a similar language. They can be like, hey, I spot.
Right.
Right? And they can be really hard because then the not I is always very possessed, possesses, you know, the being. And they're very strong. And these suggestions are so strong. They've been passed down through generations. They're very, very conniving, very hard to spot. But I think but there are tools out there to become free.
Yeah.
And I think we live in an era where there's literature and podcasts, so much available to us.
Yeah.
You know, it's just also knowing where to find it. So it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing because you're opening so many people to, you know, new avenues. And it's just, so cool.
Yeah, well, you know, we've leveled the playing field now where I don't have to be through some major conglomerate network that's owned by 3 people to get a voice out there and get a story out there and get a message out there. And that's really the great equalizer. And I believe the fastest moving element that's fueling the train, right, is the ability for people to, you know, find what resonates with them and not go through this filter of, you know, some corporation or conglomerate, right?
Well, that for sure, but then it's even more difficult in another way
to sift.
To sift and be like, what's actually the truth?
Yeah, right.
So we live in an era now, we've got so many people saying, well, I'm telling the truth and I'm telling the truth and all this. And you're like, who do I believe?
You just believe yourself. That's really the only person you can actually believe.
Yep. I always say it on this show. It's like, hey, just explore this stuff with an open mind. Whatever you do, don't take my word for it. Explore it with an open mind. And then buckle up your seatbelt because something will show you that there's something going on here that you should pay attention to.
The self can deceive you as well, though. And I just realized, you know, that's something I think about when I'm like, trust yourself. It's like, but, you know, you can fool yourself. But, like, honestly, like, if you can get clear with yourself, that's so important. Like the clearer you can get with yourself.
It depends if you're speaking about self with a lower S or self with a
Self with the higher, the higher S, the big S.
You think that can be deceiving?
No. I think the little self can be deceiving.
Yes.
And then the big self is like there, and you know it's there, and the little self, I don't know, runs around in your mind and says this and that, but like you just tune into the big self in the heart, and then like things become a lot more clear.
That's the key I found is as cliche as it sounds. You know, what would love do now? What's the most loving thing I could do in this moment?
Yeah.
And when you tap into that, I believe you're tapping into the higher, the big self. That's how it views and approaches every situation. What is the most loving, perspective that I can take in this moment? What is the highest path that I can take in this moment, regardless of what it looks like that the results will be yielded? And sometimes the tricky part is it'll look like, I'll get further if I take a more manipulative approach or conniving approach, or shun this person or that thing, when really you can't see the chessboard the way the big self can. And I believe it always leads to the best results. And if you just can learn to have faith and trust in that, like what is the most loving perspective, and that's really what I refer to as like spiritual alchemy, like shifting perspectives until love emerges, and then taking that path.
Exactly.
And it's not always easy to do, especially when you're reactive or something just really triggering to you. It's really easy to want to like drop an elbow on somebody.
And also, like, it's really cool. Like, one thing that I've been really appreciating lately is just like living life in a state of possibility until you really have that clear hit. It's like you don't need to stress out. Like, don't worry if there's like nothing obvious to you right now. Just it's gonna come. Just like prepare yourself, and then you'll be ready when it does come. Yeah, and then
trusting that everything unfolds in divine timing, and I don't need to ever force a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
There's always enough. You always get what you need. All of these perspectives, once you can like relax into them, it's so much easier than the struggle and the scraping and always trying to make something happen prematurely. I've done so much of that in my life, and it's like it's exhausting.
I think remembering that we're this life is not about attaining a non-disturbed state.
Yeah.
And then I think that's one of the first, what I've learned is that that's one of the first big misconceptions, that we come into this world out of the womb state, which is an infinite space of equilibrium, being connected and at one with the mother, all of the above, and then we come into this world, and there is contrast, there is pain, there is all of the things, and so in the underlying a lot of our unconscious actions is this desire to be non-disturbed. And to go back, that we deserve to be non-disturbed. Right. That it was something was done to us that was not okay.
I should.
Right. And
why'd you let me out of the womb?
So, but in this realm, there is pain. But the choice of suffering is a very that's something that to not put pain and suffering in the same boat. It's so I think like really seeing that, and also how do our decisions, if we're making decisions based on non-disturbance, that's also a way to identify.
Just looking for the safe route, no matter what, But so many people live their whole lives on the sidelines doing that. What's the safest thing I can do? What's the safest, and meanwhile, the growth happens out on that uncomfortable edge. Almost always, right?
Seems to.
Yeah.
It really does seem to, So it's like this. It's so multi-layered, and I never imagined this when I was, my 15-year-old self. That this is where I would be. Many years later, like that, all of the things that I thought were even interesting at that time were all going to be coming together. In in a field of this awakening that was very real. It's not like something that just a few people are talking about. Right. It's something that it's so cool that there's so many different avenues now that people are coming out, and they're like, there's more. There's more, and it's not only the churches that have access, it's not only we all do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a note on pain that you were talking about, like I feel like so many of us are going through these changes, not just personally, but on like a collective level. And like pain, I think, is a side effect of this transformation that we're all going through. But like it's not, like you said, suffering. It's just the sign of change. And like it's like where you like it's going to happen one way or another, and it all boils down to like how you perceive it and what you do with it. I think that's important moving forward.
I think of the caterpillar and the butterfly. When it's mid-chrysalis, it's not thinking like, it's not thinking, whoa, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
All my cells are melting down to a goo. Like, it's transformative. And, I also think of the meme that I've seen recently where it's like, what people initially think their spiritual awakening will be like, and it's like unicorns and butterflies. What it's really like, and it's got someone with
like
the covers
fire.
pulled up to their mouth and sweat, and, and it truly can be, and you sort of can, the reality is you can kind of jump between those perspectives at different times.
Or
right?
be both at the same time.
both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No expectations.
We did not sign up
Ride
for something
the roller
that,
coaster.
buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yep. So it seems every day. Let's keep.
I feel like our collective roller coaster is on an upswing, though. Like, I feel like,
I do too.
at least according to the Mayan calendar, like, the old cycles ended on the 24th of July. And the 25th was the day without time. So the day without time was the 25th. And for me personally, that was a day of incredible transformation. I woke up in a state of the most fear I've probably experienced in years.
Wow.
And I ended in such a place of power.
Wow.
And then the 26th, that was the beginning of the new galactic cycle. And I feel like, there was a lot of pain in that transformation, but now there's so much beauty. Like, as long as you're present with it and you're open to the new emerging instead of just clinging to the old that's fading. It's beautiful. I think we all have a really great chance here to do something amazing.
I think I think that's a big part of what's going on now. Is like as this quickening happens, this sped up evolution feels like that's happening. The only thing to do is to learn to just like continue to surrender and let go. Yeah. And our expectations are not going to always be met, and things are going to show up in ways we did not really.
And we're going to show up in ways we didn't imagine.
Right. And just like surrender, let go, surrender, let go. And I think that's the quickest path, the least painful path on the journey for us all.
And a really non-painful way to explore this is to make art yourself.
Yes, I want to talk about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. What would be the advice to the young budding artist out there? I mean, if you guys who aren't familiar with Amanda Sage's art or Vajra, and that's spelled Vajra, I mean, if you go look it up, you're going to probably, some people would take the perspective of, oh my gosh, this is like mind-blowingly, fascinatingly, incredibly beautiful. I can already hear some people's thoughts now. Oh, well, I could never do that. That's just like on a whole nother level. And, but they can, right?
Yes.
And whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right, as Henry Ford once said.
Yeah.
And I love that quote. It's a good one. And so I would love you two, as masters of your craft, I'd love your advice for budding artists out there.
Well, first is just do it.
Yeah, you're right.
Pick up the pencil, start doodling.
Yeah.
And the first hurdle to overcome is the judgment, of the criticism of yourself. I should be different. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it right? And to just continue and to see where it goes. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've learned over time. I've trained my vessel, to be able to render to such a degree that I feel, not intimidated by anything or much, right? There's so many questions still, but of what's coming through, but I feel confident in that rendering. So, but these skills can be learned. It's not like it's something that's just, only a few are blessed with.
Yes.
And I do teach this and have been teaching transformational painting intensives around the world for the past 10 years.
Wow.
And it is incredible. There's people that show up that are already established artists, and some that are not, that are very new to it or very, very beginner. They haven't drawn since they were a kid or something, and everyone kind of goes into this quantum field, creates this quantum field of support and, and focus, that kind of environment of focus. And you'd be so surprised what happens. But it's getting past that initial fear and judgment. And so, it's really a great lesson for life in general and practice for life in general. And that's how I see art making is so connected with metaphors, of life, that is just, it's such a great tool for evolving consciousness. So these workshops, they're happening all over the world. There are quite a few teachers and stuff. They're just, and people are going whether they want to be like a professional artist or not,
Right.
And I think there's a lot more potential and possibility for more people to embrace their artist selves than ever before. And it can be some kind of a part-time thing. I think the idea of becoming a full-time professional, all I do is paint.
Yeah.
There's a lot of illusions there.
It's a little unattainable for some.
Yeah, and it's not maybe what is maybe, it's something that is kind of like a rosy glasses.
Right.
That is not like that. It's not that it's not attainable. It's that it's maybe not actually what your highest purpose is.
Right.
But for some it is, for sure. But I've found over time that it's like the artist path for me is something that is way more dynamic.
Yeah.
Like the great art, the greatest artwork I feel like that I can create is not just on the canvas. It's an orchestra, and it has to do with the crew. And it's us, and that's what happens in my individual space, in my solo time on the canvas. I still feel like I'm painting with an orchestra,
right?
And for the orchestra,
right.
And so it's like, and that's the times that I'm in. That's what I'm really interested in. It's not like this. Yeah, so it's a jam. It's a big art jam, and so we need all of you guys.
Yes.
Just stop being like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah,
it's about what you want.
Yeah,
right.
The hardest part, like you said, is just starting. Like I always tell people when they're like, how do I start painting? I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is pick up the brush.
Yeah.
You need to put that brush down on the canvas, move it, and then it's so much easier.
And then you get going.
Yeah. It's like I'm a self-taught artist. I've been drawing my whole life, and that's something that I really recommend that you do as an aspiring artist. Just get a sketchbook, draw anything. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It can be realistic. It can be from your mind. Just start moving in that direction if that's what you want to do, and you'll do it. One thing that I find that's really important for me as an artist in my creative process is not stopping until you blow your own mind, though. It's like, don't be critical of yourself, but make sure that it's exactly what you want to do when you're done. Like, don't stop until it's perfect.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. My first painting took me 5 months. It's pretty small. My second took me 8, Some of my paintings I work on for 3 years, start to finish. And it's just like, you can't think about any of the judgment or any of the criticisms or like, how's it looking now? Just commit to the idea that it's going to be perfect and that you're going to do what it takes. You're going to learn what you need to. Sometimes I'll put a piece away and then go in depth and learn something else that I need to finish it. Ask friends, talk to people. Like I've asked Amanda a number of questions. A lot of my great friends and visionary artists I've learned so much from.
Wow.
Just by talking and asking and working with them and collaborating. And it's a beautiful thing once you start because it's a thing of personal revelation. And that's what's so important. It doesn't matter if you can make it professionally. The important part is that you do it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because it's going to reveal so much to you about yourself. And, if it happens to like make a splash, you get to ripple out into infinity, affecting everybody else.
Right.
And like, that happens personally too. If you make those revelations in yourself, you're going to ripple it out. But like, you don't know what the possibility is unless you just try and do it. Commit to it. Don't be afraid. Don't judge it. Just do it. Commit to perfection. Be that.
Right.
And so that's kind of my biggest advice. And teaching is beautiful. I've taught a couple workshops, and people that I give this advice to, they're like, they'll come back to me a year later and be like, look what I did. I never painted before this, but it's just like, whoa, you're really good. You never even knew it. And like, I'm so happy that I was able to like help you explore that.
Cool.
And like, it really is important that you just do it. It's not that hard. Like painting isn't that hard. It kind of seems like it, but it really isn't. You just put some paint down and smear it around with little
it's that easy.
hair on a brush.
See where it goes.
Yeah.
Follow the brush.
And that's one thing that, like, I met a friend of Amanda's, Stefan Lucas from Vienna. She actually taught him his first workshop that ever got him painting in this style. And, like, there's so many ways to create. Like, a lot of my art is really controlled and fine and, like, illustration and story-based. And so that's where the sketchbook comes in handy. But, like, Stefan and so many of my fellow, you know, art wizard friends just go for it. They just open the channel, just open the painting up to whatever happens, and then the story comes out. And that can be an extremely fun way, an easy way for a non-artist to create art. Yeah. Because you're not actually really even creating anything. You're just allowing nature and chaos to kind of, and the universe, to show you the story that wants to come out. Right. And then, you know, just keep playing around abstract. Don't be committed to an outcome. Don't have like an idea like, oh, I kind of see this, I'm going to do that. Like, just wait. Keep turning the painting. Just keep adding to it, color, texture, shape. And then eventually a story will come out, and then you'll see it. And that's going to be so much easier for you to paint as a non-artist than if you're trying to create it from scratch.
Oh,
and it's like that, you know, it's a really fun way to explore yourself and the universe and the creative process. And you know, there's plenty of you know, send Amanda a message, send me a message, just reach out. You know, we're all here together and happy to help in this creative endeavor.
I like that technique approach. It seems like one that would really resonate with a lot of people who get tripped up on what to paint and you know.
I can't remember if it was Da Vinci or Leonardo or what was it, Michelangelo, that said, you know, look at the smudges on the walls of your city. Like, what do you see in the dirt? Like, it's old. It's an old way of creation, and it's super simple and beautiful.
Yeah, you can start. Sometimes a nice way to break a fast of creating is to take some charcoal, just some like charcoal from a fire pit, and start smearing that around on some paper, because you can get really like visceral with it. And it's very non-committal, you know? Right. It's like not like a pen. Like a pen is like, oh my God, it's there. Yeah. I can't erase it.
Yeah.
Right? And then also to play around, maybe put on some gloves or something, get some paint, some acrylic paint out or whatever, and some water, a canvas or a panel or something, and just play around with the textures of paint until you see into the cloud something that you want to maybe like pull out, or you know, and then you come study with one of us. And
hopefully I'll be teaching a workshop here at the Mystic Manor called The Art of Magic. I've been talking with Sage about it, and hopefully we can get you out here to teach a workshop. We'd love that. Also, one more like crucial tip that was huge in my artistic journey. There's a book by a guy named James Gurney called Imaginative Realism: How to Paint What Does Not Exist. I recommend that to anybody and everybody that wants to create art, even if you've been making art forever. It's so useful.
Amanda's writing it down on her phone right now. And
so James Gurney, Gurney. Thank you, James. Imaginative Realism: How to Paint What Does Not Exist. He has another book called Light and Color for the Realist Painter, I believe. Both are great, but Imaginative Realism, he has such an incredible academic history of creation and breaks down so many just little hidden steps you would never even think to employ that make it so easy from like the state of conception through the finished painting and every step along the way. So
score.
Check that book out, everybody. I recommend it.
I feel like I must know this book.
I should get an affiliate link. I've turned so many people on this book. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's so useful. So go out and get it.
So as Vajra just mentioned, he is playing a really crucial instrumental role here at the Mystic Manor. Not only was he on the very first episode of Optimistic, but is also taking the reins, helping to curate visionary art to be sort of on display, and we were really looking to make not only it be a center point of the new show, but also here at the Mystic Manor, a place where people can come, see it, buy it, you know, help to get this art out to the world in unique ways. And so I really appreciate your willingness to steward that and help co-create that here. It's such an exciting new chapter.
I'll just give a short, quick synchronicity that kind of led to it all.
Ooh, we like those. That was coming up next. He is prophetic. He keeps reading my mind.
All right. Well, so for about 10 years now, I've been painting, and I did it mostly in my home, kind of in my little cave, just like hermiting out, doing my work. I've done a lot of festivals and things like that, but I felt like I never really got out there the way that I wanted to. I never really was able to share my message on the level I wanted to. And really a lot of that in the past couple years has had had to do with my cat Pandora. She was my muse. She's the subject of my first painting, Pandora's Box. Sat on my lap when I was making my first piece of visionary art the day we brought her home. Sat on my lap until the day she passed. And when she finally passed, I was like, okay, you know, I love you, Pan. I'm free now to go explore the world as an artist and really do what I'm here to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it for me. I'm going to do it for my friends. I'm going to do it for the world, and we're all going to thrive. Then, like, maybe 15 minutes later, I get a call from Brandon, and he says, hey, I would love to have you painting on this consciousness-based talk show that I'm creating called Optimistic. What do you feel about that? I'm just like, all right, basically everything you just said to me, I just said to myself. I'm with you there. And we started talking, and such beautiful opportunities have blossomed out of it. I've become kind of like the gatekeeper for the visionary art world, and just bringing all my fantastic friends that I've made over the past 10 years onto the show to paint and share their stories, but also create a venue here at the Mystic Manor for us to show our art and sell it as well. We're collecting art from around the world. Some of the most beautiful, precious painters that have ever lived will be exhibiting their art here. And we'll have monthly open houses, so anybody that would like can always come by and say hi. And just the opportunities are incredible. Everything is just flowing in such perfect alignment, and I'm so excited for everything that's happening. This included. So
me too.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful to your energy and enthusiasm. I mean, it's been the most intense few months of my life in preparation, moving in here, launching the retreats, that are going along with the new show, and you've just been there patiently, like, okay, how can I help? How can I get the visionary art going? And it's so crucial. You talked about, Amanda was talking about, having your team, your squad, like, and sometimes you can become sort of the bottleneck of, I know for me, one of my things to really work through is becoming the bottleneck of, no one else can do it as good as I can, or, their energy is not quite there the way I want it to be, so never mind, I'll just deal with it, go away, kind of thing. You, on the other hand, your enthusiasm has been like so much fire and passion and joyousness, and every time we connect, it's just like, it feels so in alignment, and it makes me just smile thinking back. And if you guys go back to that episode 726 and the ones leading up to it, you'll hear the Demiurge story, which is the incredible painting that original of yours that I own, and kind of our journey first getting
bridge.
The original bridge to lead to all this. Looking back, just a little over a year ago right now. So super, super inspiring. And Amanda, I would love to hear any story. I always love to hear stories of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal stories. You gotta have something up your magical sleeve.
Well, there's one that I just popped into my mind about how I met my mentor, Ernst Fuchs, and how he was so certain when he met me that he had already painted me.
Oh, wow.
And it was a painting of a knight that he thought was actually a man. It was a knight wearing full armor, except for just you could see this much of his face. And he thought, and this knight was wearing full armor, riding a horse and a motorcycle at the same time.
Whoa.
And in one hand was a sword, and on the other hand that was raising up was a stop sign.
Whoa.
And so it was this kind of weird painting, and I was like probably 20 I think I was 20 when I met him. 21, and I had a shaved head at the time. I was very much...
Wow, you have so much hair now. That's wild.
It's been a while.
Yeah. 12 years of dreadlocks later.
And more, right? I mean, there's definitely more in between. But he was so into this. He was like, and he knew that when he was painting this portrait, he's had this feeling and sense a few times in his life that he was painting somebody that he was going to meet but didn't know yet.
Wow.
And so I was in a very kind of like gender neutral kind of space or state of my visual appearance, I think, at that time. And so it was a really interesting thing, and it was the beginning of our relationship, and I worked with him for like 10 years. But he knighted me right there in the beginning. He was like, well, you're a knight, so you've got to be knighted.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
It's
all
probably a
right.
past life thing.
And so we went and bought a sword together. This is when we were in, he lived in Monaco, and I would go and work with him.
Do you still
there.
have the sword?
No, he didn't. I mean, the sword wasn't given to me. I know the sword does exist somewhere still, but I was
Wow.
given a knight's name.
Wow.
And, he called me by that.
What was it?
Hurt de Biza.
Wow.
What does it mean?
Hurt de Biza plays this interesting role as like a guide and a scribe.
That's fitting.
In this Jean Cocteau black and white film.
Wow.
The Hurt de Biza plays in that film too. Is also disguised as a young man.
Interesting.
It's kind of
That's very cool.
and helps take is like as a guide into the underworld.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Subconscious.
Yeah, it's interesting, but so that was one thing, and then also meeting him in general. My high school art teacher was a Japanese fantastic realist. Ooh. And it was a deep synchronicity that I ended up being connected to the Fuchs family and being introduced to Michael Fuchs. And I came back and told my high school art teacher this, and he just fell against the wall. He was like, oh my God. So I got to go and do what he had always, didn't even dream could even be a reality for him.
Right.
And so there's been a lot of synchronistic little things that have happened along the way that are like, really?
Yeah.
Is it really just a coincidence? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so.
Sometimes they go so deep, it's just they're just ridiculous,
I think it's gears.
It's so fascinating. Wow. Speaking of fascinating, this has been so incredible. I've so enjoyed deep diving with both of you, and
Likewise, Brandon.
and I know the listeners have. You guys are both such inspirations, and for those who want to continue to connect and follow your work and maybe attain some of your incredible artwork, what is the best way for them to find you?
AmandaSage.com, but also you can find me all over the interwebs.
Yeah.
In Instagram, Amanda Sage Art. That's kind of where I post the most. I also have a Facebook page, and I also have a project called The Vision Train. If you want to look that up on Instagram, that's still in kind of beta phase, but it's a drawing project that I hope to go viral soon.
Cool.
We can get the template out to as many people as possible to put your vision in a train car, so we can hook it in.
I love the
hook
train
it into
thing.
the train and build to strengthen all of our individual visions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. How about you, Vajra?
Well, pretty soon you'll actually be able to find some of Amanda's originals and my originals here in the Mystic Manor
Yes.
as soon as we open Mystic Heart's Visionary Art Gallery. Until then, at my website, I share all the stories behind everything I paint, which to me are just as relevant as the images. I've also got a shop on there. It's altaroftheheart.com, ALTAR of theheart.com. On Instagram, I'm instagram.com/visionaryart by Vajra. And then on Facebook, it's facebook.com/altaroftheheart. And those are my main ways of communicating with the internet. So I hope to see you there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I do have one last question for each of you individually. And my very predictable closing question is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to each of you individually?
Pure magic. Done.
Done. Bam. All right, you can take his extra 59 seconds if you'd like.
They're yours.
What is the meaning of life?
According to Amanda Sage.
To live and love and become more alive through this dance. It's a dance,
Yes, it is.
and it's a blessing, and it's a mystery, and I don't know what it is,
Well,
but it's to be enjoyed and to be played with, playful. Yeah.
well, you both are capturing the playfulness and bringing, I truly believe art is like, it's in the name Earth, right? EARTH. And it's the most important piece of our creatorship as we all step into more active role as creators. It's the thing that excites us and sort of leaves. I talked about this the other day on the first episode of Optimistic. Someone was saying that the reason that you hear birds like singing in the morning at sunrise is to let their mates know, hey, I'm here. I made it another night. And they said perhaps that's what art is for us, right? It's like, hey, I'm here. I'm still here. I'm still around. And this is my contribution, while I'm here. And I think that's just such a beautiful idea. And thank you both for leaving the world, making the world a more beautiful place. You both are truly inspirations to me, and I'm so just thrilled to be able to co-create with you and to continue this journey, this epic saga, this dance together, riding the train. I'm so happy you're both on my train. And till next time, everyone, enjoy the ride, journey well.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Peace out.